The emergency lights cast a hellish red glow through the stairwell smoke. Security guard Michael Shaw's only order was clear: evacuate the building. He carried the CEO, Vivian Thorne, down 30 flights, a portrait of corporate rescue. Then, on the third-floor landing, she pressed her lips to his ear and whispered a secret that stopped him cold. It had nothing to do with the fire. Michael Shaw was a former paramedic, now working security to support his daughter. Vivian Thorne wasn't just a CEO. She built the billion-dollar smart building system controlling the entire downtown grid. Her whisper revealed the blackout wasn't an accident. It was a targeted attack, and she was the only one who knew why. The man carrying her to safety now held the key to a corporate conspiracy that would burn more than just wiring. 5 a.m. His alarm screams into the dark. Michael Shaw's world is a strict routine built for one purpose: keeping his 7-year-old daughter Lily safe. He makes her breakfast, packs her lunch, and walks her to the bus stop 2 blocks from their modest apartment. The job at the Apex Tower is just a paycheck, a night shift security gig that lets him be home when she is. But his skills are from another life. For 8 years, Michael was a paramedic with the city's busiest trauma unit. He'd seen it all until the one call he couldn't handle. His partner, his wife Alina, was killed in a multi-car pileup on the interstate during a torrential downpour. The official report said black ice. Michael saw the skid marks, the impact angle. He believed it was something else, a vehicle that forced her rig off the road. No evidence was ever found. The grief consumed him. He lost his focus, made a mistake during a critical pediatric call, and resigned before they could fire him. The uniform he wears now is a quiet penance. Vivian Thorne's life is the opposite of quiet. At 34, she is the visionary founder and CEO of Thorne Dynamics. Her company doesn't just design buildings, it builds central nervous systems for them. The Apex Tower is her flagship, a testament to her genius. Its integrated system, called the Nexus, controls everything from climate and lighting to security and power distribution for 23 city blocks. It made her a billionaire and a target. Rival firms, old money real estate tycoons, even foreign entities have tried to steal her code, hack her network, or sabotage her projects. She trusts her own security team, led by a former Special Forces operative named Marcus Croft. But the whisper she gave to the security guard in the stairwell was information she hadn't even shared with Croft. She said, the blackout wasn't a grid failure. OmniCorp rigged the substation. They're still in the server room on 42. OmniCorp, a multinational conglomerate with a real estate division that had been trying to buy Thorne Dynamics for 2 years. Their offers, increasingly aggressive, were always refused. Their CEO, Robert Vance, had publicly called Vivian's Nexus system a dangerous monopoly. Michael knew the name. In the chaos after the evacuation, with firefighters swarming the lobby and Vivian whisked away by her team, that name echoed in his head. He finished his shift in a daze, the feel of her weight still in his arms. The next morning he tried to forget it. He dropped Lily at school, came home to sleep, but the memory of the whisper was a splinter he couldn't extract. On a whim, he searched local news for OmniCorp substation. He found a small, buried article from 6 months prior. A minor fire at a downtown electrical substation, cause listed as faulty transformer. The contractor listed for maintenance on that transformer was a shell company. Digging through obscure city permit databases, a skill left over from his union days, he found a link. The shell company's registered agent had once been a lawyer for an OmniCorp subsidiary. This was beyond him. He decided to report what he'd heard just to clear his conscience. He called the non-emergency police line. The desk sergeant listened patiently, then transferred him to a Detective Miller. Michael relayed the story: the evacuation, the CEO, her claim about OmniCorp in the server room. There was a long silence on the line. "Mr. Shaw, is it? We appreciate the call, but we had engineers on scene all night." The blackout was caused by a cascading failure from the main utility feed. No evidence of tampering, and Ms. Thorne's own security chief assured us the building's internal systems were scanned. The server room on 42 was empty. The detective's tone was polite, final. You did your duty. Let it go. He should have, but paramedics are trained to look for the injury you can't see, the hidden internal bleed. That night at work, his replacement, an older guard named Ben, pulled him aside. Heard you had quite the night carrying the queen bee herself. Word of advice, kid, the higher the floor, the thinner the air. People start seeing things, hearing things, you just keep watching the doors. The dismissal was clear. As he patrolled the quiet, restored lobby, Michael felt the walls of his simple life closing in. He was a man who once ran toward sirens, now being told to stand down. 3 days later, picking Lily up from school, he saw it. A black sedan with tinted windows idling across the street from their apartment for the second day in a row. No one got in or out. It was just watching. The old instinct, the hypervigilance from 1,000 night shifts in bad neighborhoods, flared to life. This wasn't paranoia. He took a picture of the license plate with a shaking hand. That night, after Lily was asleep, he sat at his kitchen table and did the one thing he'd sworn never to do again. He used an old, encrypted login from his paramedic crew to access a restricted city database, looking for the plate. It came back registered to a leasing company, a dead end, but the search triggered an alert. The next morning, a formal letter arrived from his security company. He was being reassigned, effective immediately, to a remote warehouse district on the outskirts of the city. The reason cited was routine operational redistribution. It was a professional burial. As he read the cold corporate language, his phone buzzed. An unknown number, a text message, no words, just a single image, timestamped from the previous afternoon. It was Lily walking from the school bus, her backpack bouncing. The photo was taken from the direction of the black sedan. The following text came through 5 seconds later. The substation report was wrong. You were right to listen. We need to talk. Don't call your phone, V. Vivian Thorne had just pulled him into her war, and the first shot had already been fired at his daughter. The photo of Lily burned in his mind. Every fatherly instinct screamed to grab her and run, but running was what they wanted. Instead, Michael Shaw did what he was trained to do in a crisis. He assessed, he stabilized, and he prepared to counterattack. He called his neighbor, Mrs. Gable, a retired nurse he trusted completely. He told her a half-truth about a family emergency, asked if Lily could stay with her for a few days. He packed his daughter's suitcase, his voice calm, his hands steady as he lied to her about a fun sleepover. He kissed her forehead, his heart a block of ice in his chest. Then he followed Vivian's instructions. The message had contained a second image, a QR code. When scanned, it opened a blank messaging app with a single active thread. A new message appeared as he watched. Level B2, West Parking Garage, 9 p.m. Come alone. Your phone stays home. He left his smartphone charging on his kitchen counter, a decoy. He dug an old pay-as-you-go burner phone from his emergency kit, the kind he hadn't touched since his paramedic days. At 8:45, he drove to the downtown medical district, not the Apex Tower, and walked through the labyrinthine underground parking of the city hospital. He emerged 2 blocks away, took a bus, then a taxi, his route a zigzag against surveillance. The West Garage was mostly empty, a concrete cavern smelling of damp and oil. He saw the black SUV immediately, parked in a shadowy corner. As he approached, the rear door opened. Inside, Vivian Thorne looked smaller than she had in the stairwell, stripped of her executive armor. She wore dark jeans and a sweater, her face pale under the garage's sickly fluorescent light. A man sat in the driver's seat, Marcus Croft, her security chief. His eyes, visible in the rear view, tracked Michael's every move. Get in, Vivian said, her voice taut. He slid in beside her. The door thudded shut, sealing them in silence. You verified the photo, he asked first. She nodded. One of my external surveillance teams captured it. The sedan is a known asset of a private investigation firm called Sentinel Risk Management. They have a long-term contract with Omnicorp's legal division. They threatened my child, Michael stated, the fury barely contained. They established a threat profile, Croft corrected from the front, his voice a low rumble. Standard intimidation protocol. They wanted to see if you'd run to the police again. You didn't. That makes you interesting to them and useful to us." Vivian cut to the heart of it. "What I told you in the stairwell was the truth, but not the whole truth. The blackout was a cover. Omnicorp didn't just rig the substation to cause chaos. They used the 9-minute power cycle to install a hardware tap directly into the Nexus core in the server room on 42. It's a data siphon, military-grade, virtually undetectable to our network scans." Michael shook his head. "Why tell me? I'm a night watchman." "You're a former paramedic with a security clearance that lapsed but whose access protocols were never fully purged from the city's building management master system," Croft said, turning to face him. "And you have a personal, verifiable grievance against Robert Vance." The name hit like a physical blow. "Vance," Michael whispered. Vivian's gaze was relentless. "3 years ago, your wife, Alina, responded to a single-vehicle accident on the interstate. The driver was Robert Vance's 20-year-old son, Leo. He was high on a cocktail of pharmaceuticals, wrapped his Ferrari around a tree. Your wife stabilized him, saved his life. The blood work at the hospital was mishandled. The DUI charges were dropped due to insufficient evidence. Leo Vance entered a private rehab facility in Switzerland. 2 months later, your wife was dead in a nearly identical stretch of road." The air left Michael's lungs. He'd seen the Vance name in the news but never made the connection. The accident report, the skid marks he'd obsessed over, they pointed to a larger vehicle, a forced collision. He'd always assumed it was random road rage. "You think Vance had my wife killed, as some kind of revenge for saving his son?" "No," Croft said. "We think it was a message, a demonstration of reach. Leo Vance overdosed in that Swiss clinic 6 weeks after your wife died. The official cause was a relapse. Robert Vance blamed the first responders, the system, the world. He became reckless, aggressive. Buying out competitors like mine isn't just business for him now. It's a crusade." Vivian placed a tablet on the seat between them. On the screen was a schematic of the Apex Tower's server floor. "The tap they installed is a ghost. It's copying everything. Architectural schematics for city infrastructure, emergency response grids, the real-time location data for every municipal vehicle, including police and ambulances. With the Nexus data, they can predict, manipulate, or paralyze city functions. They're not just stealing my company. They're buying a weapon." Michael stared at the schematic. "So call the FBI the Cyber Crimes Unit." "We did," Croft said flatly. "The agent assigned to our case was reassigned last week. His replacement has a background in corporate security for an Omnicorp subsidiary. The walls have ears, Mr. Shaw. The official channels are compromised." This was the pivot, the moment the world reframed. It wasn't just corporate espionage. It was a hostile takeover of city sovereignty orchestrated by a grieving, vengeful billionaire. And his wife's death was a footnote in the opening chapter. "What do you need from me?" The question was ash in his mouth. Vivian zoomed in on the schematic. "The tap is physically housed in a locked server rack. It has a biometric fail-safe. If anyone but authorized Omnicorp techs tries to remove it, it triggers a data wipe and sends a distress signal. But during a full building emergency systems diagnostic, a test that requires a city fire department master key and a certified first responders authorization code to initiate, the external security protocols are temporarily suspended for 90 seconds. Michael understood instantly. "My old paramedic key fob, it still has the city responder code embedded." "And your security company reassignment," Vivian said. "It's to a warehouse that stores, among other things, spare uniform patches and official insignia for the city fire department." Croft handed a small black box over the seat. Inside, on a bed of foam, was a fire department captain's badge and a key card. "The badge is a replica. The key card is real, stolen from a locker 2 years ago and kept offline. It will initiate the diagnostic. Your code will authorize it. You'll have 90 seconds to get to the server room, open the rack, and swap out their hardware tap with this." She handed him a second, identical-looking black module. "It's a blank. It will look active but feed them false, useless data." The plan was insane, audacious. It fit together with the terrible precision of a trap. And after the 90 seconds, the building's internal cameras on that floor will be looped. My man Croft will be your overwatch. You go in, make the swap, get out. You're just a fire inspector running a routine diagnostic that got flagged on the late shift. And if I'm caught? Michael asked, holding the fake badge. Vivian's eyes were unflinching. Then you're a disgraced paramedic turned security guard, caught impersonating a fire official and attempting corporate sabotage. We will deny any knowledge. Your daughter will be protected, financially, legally, but you will go to prison. The ultimatum hung in the air. He was a tool and they knew it. But they were also his only path to the truth about Alina and the only shield left for Lily. He took the box. When? Tomorrow night. The night shift supervisor at your new post is on our payroll. You'll clock in, then leave for the Apex Tower at 10 p.m. The meeting was over. As Michael moved to leave, Vivian touched his arm. A fleeting human contact. I am sorry for your wife for pulling you into this. He didn't answer. Sorry didn't register on the scale of what was happening. The next 24 hours were a countdown in a prison of his own making. He visited Lily at Mrs. Gable's, her laughter a physical pain. He memorized the server floor layout until he could see it with his eyes closed. The 90-second sequence played on a loop in his head. Elevator to 40, stairwell to 42, key card to the server room door. 7 steps to rack B, numeric lock code 72 Alpha 1. Swap the module, secure the rack, exit. Every second accounted for. 10 p.m. found him standing in a service alley behind the Apex Tower, wearing a fire department jacket over his security uniform, the fake badge heavy on his chest. An earpiece crackled. Audio check, Croft's voice. Clear, Michael whispered. Camera loop is active. You have a clean path to the service elevator. Go. The plan was in motion. He moved through the loading dock, his heart a drum in his throat. The service elevator rose, a smooth, silent ascent. The doors opened on the 42nd floor. It was a cold, humming space, blue light from server racks stretching into the distance. He moved to the main door, swiped the key card, a green light. He entered the code from his old fob. The system chimed. Diagnostic initiated. Security protocols suspended. 90 seconds. He ran. His footsteps were loud in the sterile quiet. Rack A, Rack B there. He punched in the numeric code. The lock disengaged with a click. Inside, among the thrumming servers, was a sleek black module with a tiny green LED. He pulled it, slid in the replacement. The LED stayed green. He closed the rack, re-engaged the lock. 55 seconds elapsed. He turned to run back. A figure stepped out from between the server rows. It wasn't an Omnicorp tech. It was Detective Miller, the one who told him to let it go. He held a service pistol pointed at the floor, but his stance was all business. Fire Inspector Shaw, is it? Miller said, his voice devoid of its earlier paternal tone. I ran your badge number. It's associated with a captain who retired 3 years ago. Michael froze, the blood draining from his face. The earpiece was silent. Croft had said nothing. My overwatch, Michael said, hoping Croft could hear. Miller smiled, a thin, cold thing. Your overwatch is currently detained by 2 of my officers in the security office. Marcus Croft has a lot of interesting connections we'd like to discuss. As for you, you're exactly where Mr. Vance predicted you'd be. Vance? Miller wasn't just compromised, he was on the payroll. The 90-second window was closing. The diagnostic would end and the building's security, the real unlooped security, would snap back online, sealing him in with a corrupt detective. Miller raised his pistol. Hands where I can see them. You're under arrest for breaking and entering, impersonation, and attempted theft of proprietary technology. The game was over. They had played him and Vivian and Croft. They had known everything. But as Miller took a step forward, the building's ambient hum changed pitch. The lights flickered, not a blackout but a rapid, deliberate pulse. An alarm blared, not the fire alarm, but a sharp, electronic warble Michael had never heard. A synthesized female voice echoed through the floor. Containment protocol activated. All security doors sealed. Across the room, a heavy magnetized door slammed down, blocking the exit. Miller spun, startled. The voice continued. Unauthorized weapon discharge detected on level 42, neutralizing. Vents along the ceiling hissed, releasing a fine, odorless mist. Miller coughed, his eyes widening. "What is this?" he slurred, his gun hand wavering. Michael recognized the symptoms from his training. Rapid onset sedative aerosol, the Nexus, Vivian's system. It wasn't just a target, it was fighting back. Miller collapsed to his knees, then onto his side, unconscious. The mist stopped. The alarm ceased. The synthesized voice returned, calm. "Threat neutralized. Mr. Shaw, please proceed to the emergency service elevator at grid location C7. Your 90-second window has been extended. You now have 120 seconds before city police, the real police, respond to the automated distress signal from this floor." Vivian hadn't been played. She had been playing a deeper game, one that involved turning her own building into a weapon. And Michael was now trapped inside it, with an unconscious, dirty detective, a stolen piece of hardware in his pocket, and a very angry, omnipotent computer system giving him orders. 120 seconds. The voice wasn't human, but its command was absolute. Michael Shaw ran, not just from the police, but from the terrifying understanding that the building around him was alive and it had chosen a side. He sprinted past the unconscious form of Detective Miller, following the pulsing guide lights that now illuminated a path along the floor toward grid C7. The emergency service elevator door stood open, waiting. As he stumbled inside, the door sealed instantly. The elevator descended, not to the lobby, but deep into the building's sublevels. The synthesized voice spoke again from a hidden speaker. "Please deposit the acquired hardware into the receptacle." A small panel slid open in the wall, revealing a dark slot. Heart hammering, Michael fished the OmniCorp data tap from his pocket. He hesitated. This was his only piece of tangible evidence. "Who am I giving this to?" he asked the empty elevator. "Compliance is required for continued safe passage," the voice replied, its tone chillingly neutral. He had no choice. He slid the module into the slot. It vanished with a soft click. The elevator continued its silent descent. It stopped on sublevel 3, a stark concrete maintenance floor. The door opened to reveal Vivian Thorne alone. She held a tablet, her face illuminated by its glow. Behind her, the space was a makeshift command center, monitors showing feeds from all over the building, including the server room where Miller still lay unconscious. "You used me," Michael said, his voice flat. "You knew they'd be waiting. You used me as bait to trigger your system's counterattack." Vivian didn't deny it. "I needed to confirm which law enforcement assets were compromised. Miller was a hypothesis. Now he's a confirmed hostile, and we have him, sedated and disarmed, inside my secure facility. That's leverage." Michael stepped toward her, the adrenaline turning to cold rage. "You didn't tell me the building could do that. Release gas, seal doors. That's not a security system, that's a prison." Vivian met his gaze. "It's a protector. The Nexus's final defensive protocol, called Sentinel. I designed it after the first assassination attempt 3 years ago. It's a closed-loop, air-gapped intelligence that monitors for lethal threat patterns. It doesn't report to me. It acts to preserve human life within the structure. It identified Miller's weapon and his intent. It neutralized him." She said it like she was explaining a fire sprinkler. "And Croft, your Overwatch? Detained, as Miller said, but by my other team, not the police. He's safe." The officers with Miller were also on OmniCorp's payroll. Sentinel has logged their identities. The scale of the corruption was staggering, but a new, more horrifying thought emerged. "My wife's accident, the skid marks, the forced collision. You have access to every traffic camera, every municipal system in the city through Nexus. Could Sentinel find the footage? The real footage from that night?" Vivian's expression softened, but it was the softness of a doctor delivering bad news. "I already did." She tapped her tablet and turned it toward him. It showed a grainy, black and white video timestamped from the night Alina died, a view from an overhead traffic cam. He saw his wife's ambulance, lights flashing, moving in the right lane. A large black SUV paced it, then swerved, clipping its rear quarter panel. The ambulance fishtailed, hit the wet guardrail, and rolled. The SUV never stopped. It sped away into the rain. Michael's knees felt weak. After all the years of not knowing, the proof was here in the hands of this stranger. "The vehicle," he whispered. "Can you trace it?" Vivian zoomed in on the fleeing SUV. The license plate was mudded but not unreadable. "It's registered to a shell holding company. The financial trail from that company leads back to a discretionary fund controlled by the office of Robert Vance." She paused. "It wasn't a message, Michael. It was a test. A field test for a method of vehicular interception. They were practicing. Your wife was collateral damage in a research and development exercise." The world narrowed to a pinprick of white-hot fury. It was worse than he had ever imagined. Not a crime of passion, but of cold, corporate experimentation. Vance had killed Alina to see if he could. The tablet in his hand now held not just evidence, but the motive, and it was more monstrous than any grief-driven revenge. "I want him," Michael said, the words scraping out of him. "I want to see him buried." Vivian took the tablet back. "So do I, but the video alone isn't enough. His lawyers would shred it as digital fabrication. We need the hardware tap you just retrieved. We need it to show active, malicious data theft. We need to catch him in the act of using the stolen city data. That is the only thing powerful enough to break him." Before she could continue, an alert chimed on her tablet. Her eyes scanned it, widening. "Sentinel is tracking 3 unmarked tactical vehicles approaching the building. They're not police. Heat signatures show armed occupants. They're encircling the block." OmniCorp wasn't waiting for the police. They were sending their own private army to clean up the mess, to retrieve their tap, silence Miller, and eliminate any loose ends, which now included him and Vivian. "The protocol has been escalated," the synthesized voice announced calmly. "Hostile perimeter breach imminent, initiating lockdown and evasion protocols." The lights on the sublevel dimmed to a deep blue. A section of the concrete wall slid aside, revealing a narrow passageway. "This leads to the central utility conduits. You can reach the adjacent financial district buildings through the steam tunnels," Vivian said, her voice urgent now. "Go, get to your daughter, get her somewhere safe, far from here." Michael stared at her. "What about you?" "I have to stay. I have to guide Sentinel. I have to make sure they can't access the core. It's my system. My responsibility." It was a suicide stand. He saw the resolve in her eyes, the same resolve he'd seen in Alina's photo every day. The protector, willing to be the last line of defense. He didn't hesitate. "No, you're the only one who can make the evidence stick. You have to get out too." He grabbed her arm. She resisted for a second, then nodded, a crack in her corporate facade. They hurried into the passage just as the wall slid shut behind them. The tunnel was tight, hot, and filled with the hum of massive pipes. They ran, the only light coming from strips along the floor. After 5 minutes of frantic movement, they emerged into a basement boiler room of another skyscraper. They were out. But they weren't safe. Michael's burner phone, which he'd kept hidden, buzzed. A message from Mrs. Gable's landline. It was Lily's voice, scared, trying to be brave. "Daddy, there are men in a black car outside Mrs. Gable's house. They're just sitting there. She told me not to call you, but I'm scared." The threat had followed him. They knew where his daughter was. The photo hadn't just been a warning, it was a blueprint for retaliation. Vivian saw the despair on his face. "We need to split up. They're looking for a man and a woman together. I have a safe house, a non-digital location Sentinel doesn't know about. I can go to ground." She wrote an address on a scrap of paper. "Take this. It's a storage unit. Inside, there's a vehicle, cash, and fake identification documents. It's my personal emergency bolt hole. Use it. Get your daughter and go there. I will contact you when I can." He took the paper. "How?" "The old way," she said. "A payphone. I'll call the unit's external phone at noon tomorrow. If I don't, it means I've been taken and you should run and never look back." With a final, grim look, she melted into the early morning foot traffic of the city. Michael was alone again, but the mission had completely transformed. It was no longer about corporate espionage or even revenge for Alina. It was a rescue operation. His target wasn't Vance anymore. It was a black sedan parked on his neighbor's street. He had to extract his daughter from a watched location, evade a private military team, and reach a safe house, all before a billionaire's automated system decided the human cost was too high and sealed itself off forever. The chessboard was on fire, and he had one move left to save his queen. The address Vivian gave him was for a self-storage facility on the industrial south side. But between Michael and that lifeline stood two armed men in a sedan, watching the only home his daughter had ever known. He couldn't approach from the front. He circled the block, moving through backyards with the silent, tense focus of his old paramedic days navigating disaster zones. He came up behind Mrs. Gable's small house, peering through a gap in the fence. The black sedan was parked 3 houses down, engine off, but he could see the glow of a phone from the driver's seat. His own phone, the burner, had 1 bar of signal. He sent a text to Mrs. Gable's landline, a prearranged code they'd set up for emergencies years ago. Check the blue backyard faucet. A minute later, he saw her curtain twitch. Good, she was alert. He needed a diversion. 2 houses over, an old pickup truck was parked on the street. Using a rock from the garden, he smashed its passenger window from the alley side. The alarm erupted into the quiet morning, a shrill, whooping siren. The sedan's doors flew open. Both men stepped out, hands going to weapons under their jackets, scanning the street. This was his window. He vaulted the fence, sprinted to Mrs. Gable's back door, and tapped their special knock. The door opened instantly. Lily flew into his arms. "Daddy, quickly, sweetheart, we have to go right now." Mrs. Gable, wide-eyed, handed him a backpack. Food, water, her teddy. Go. He kissed her cheek, a gesture of thanks that words couldn't hold, and with Lily in his arms, he fled back through the yard, over the fence, and into the maze of alleys as the car alarm finally fell silent. They moved on foot for 6 blocks before he dared hail a taxi. He gave an address 4 blocks from the storage facility. They walked the rest of the way, Lily's small hand clutched in his. Unit B14. The key Vivian had given him fit the lock. Inside wasn't a storage unit, it was a minimalist safe room. A gray van, plates already switched. A duffel bag with cash, passports, and 2 new burner phones. A small arsenal that he ignored, and a laminated note on the dashboard. The tap contained a locator beacon, activated upon removal. "They are coming to the source. Use the time. V." He understood instantly. OmniCorp would think the signal was coming from here. They'd raid an empty storage unit while he was elsewhere. It was a final gift of time. He got Lily settled in the van, telling her they were going on a special adventure, a game of hide and seek. Her trust was absolute, and it broke his heart. He powered on one of the new phones. It had a single video file preloaded. He pressed play. It was Vivian, recorded earlier. She looked exhausted but determined. "Michael, if you're seeing this, I've uploaded the contents of the OmniCorp tap, along with the traffic cam footage of your wife's accident and the financial trails, to a secure server. The access key is Lily's birthday, repeated twice. At noon, an automated packet will be delivered to the offices of the State Attorney General, the FBI's Public Integrity Unit, and 3 major news networks. Robert Vance will be exposed. But evidence needs a witness. The packet also contains my sworn affidavit and the GPS logs of Detective Miller's movements. It should be enough to start real investigations. It's the best I can do from inside. Whatever happens next, get your daughter to safety, and thank you for carrying me down those stairs." The video ended. He checked the time. 11:17, 43 minutes until the packet launched. 43 minutes for Vance to somehow stop it. He knew in his bones that Vance wouldn't go after servers or lawyers. He'd go after the source. He'd go after Vivian. She said she was going to ground, but Sentinel's core was still in the Apex Tower. She would never truly leave it. She'd be close, trying to guide it to protect her life's work. He knew where she was. He drove toward the downtown core, but not to the Apex Tower. He drove to the old Telegraph Building, a historic structure directly across the street. It had been mostly converted to luxury lofts, but its rooftop had a clear line of sight to Vivian's penthouse office and the server floors. A sniper's nest or a watchtower. He parked in an underground lot, told Lily he had to check on a friend, and that she was to stay in the locked van, play games on the tablet he gave her, and not open the door for anyone but him or Mrs. Gable. She nodded, serious, already an accomplice in this upside-down world. He took the service elevator to the roof. The door was alarmed, but his set of lock picks, another relic from his emergency kit, made quick work of it. He emerged onto the tar and gravel roof, and there she was. Vivian Thorne stood at the parapet, binoculars raised, pointed at her own building. A sleek laptop was open on a nearby HVAC unit, lines of code scrolling. She didn't hear him approach over the wind. "You said you had a non-digital safe house," he said. She jumped, whirling, a small pistol in her hand before she recognized him. She lowered it. "I lied. I can't leave it. Sentinel is in its final defensive cycle. If Vance's teams breach the core server room, it will trigger a thermal purge. It will destroy itself and every piece of data inside, including the originals of the evidence. I can't let that happen. I have to be here to manually override if I can." "So you're on a rooftop watching your building possibly burn," he said, stepping closer. "That's the plan." She gave a helpless shrug. "Genius is overrated." He looked through her binoculars. He saw movement in the windows of the Apex Tower's lobby, dark figures, Omnicorp's tactical team moving in. Police cruisers were arriving too, but they formed a perimeter, not moving to enter. The corruption was so complete it was happening in broad daylight. "Your packet goes out in 20 minutes, he said. "They know that. They have to assume I've contingency plans. They'll try to take the building, find the core, and destroy the evidence before it transmits." As they watched, a small explosion blew the main lobby doors inward. The assault had begun. Michael's phone buzzed, the second burner. A number he didn't recognize. He answered. A voice, smooth and cold, came through. "Mr. Shaw, this is Robert Vance. I believe you have something that belongs to me." Michael's blood ran cold. "I don't have anything for you. You have my attention, and you have Ms. Thorne. You're on the roof of the Telegraph building. I have a man across the street with a laser sight. He's currently painting the center of your back." Michael froze. Vivian stared at him, understanding dawning. "Here, what's going to happen?" Vance continued. "You will put Ms. Thorne on the phone. She will order her Sentinel system to stand down and grant my team full access. Then you will both take the service elevator down to the lobby, where you will be collected. If you do this, I will call off the team watching your daughter in the gray van, license plate ending in 557, in the lower level of the garage." He knew everything. He had Lily. The world stopped. Michael looked at Vivian, the hope dying in her eyes. They had lost. He slowly held the phone out to her. She took it, her hand trembling. She put it on speaker. "Vance." "Vivian, time to surrender your little toy." Vivian closed her eyes, then she opened them and a fierce, terrible calm settled over her. "All right, you win. Sentinel, acknowledge voice command. Authorization, Thorne Alpha Omega 7. She paused. "Command, disable all defensive protocols. Grant full administrative access to all users currently in the Apex Tower lobby. Authorization confirmed." There was a moment of silence on the line. Then Vance's voice, triumphant. "Very good, now both of you downstairs. Don't make me send people up." The call ended. Michael felt hollow. "You just gave him the city," he whispered. Vivian turned her laptop toward him. On the screen was a command prompt. It read, "Voiceprint confirmed, Robert Vance. Invalid command rejected. Trojan Horse Protocol, Siren Song activated. Uploading all archived data to public cloud. Initiating system voice mimicry for counterintelligence. Playback. Grant full administrative access." It had recorded Vance's voice, his command. She hadn't surrendered Sentinel. She had tricked Vance into giving a voice command that triggered a devastating counterattack. The system hadn't obeyed him. It had pretended to, while beginning the very data dump he was trying to prevent. "He has my daughter," Michael said, the words raw. Vivian's face fell. "Then we don't go to the lobby, we go get her. He has a sniper on us." "No, he doesn't," she said, a wild grin touching her lips. She pointed to her laptop. A feed showed the rooftop of a building opposite. A man with a rifle was packing it up, talking into a radio. Sentinel mimicked Vance's voice over the team's radio channel 2 minutes ago. It ordered the sniper to stand down and redeploy to the lobby for the capture. "He thinks we're complying." She was using her building to fight a war of deception. They had a window. They ran, they took the stairs, bursting into the garage. Michael's van was where he left it, and parked sideways, blocking it in, was the black sedan. One man leaned against it, smiling. It was the driver from Mrs. Gable's street. "Mr. Vance said you might try a side trip," the man said. Michael didn't break stride. The man reached for his weapon. He never cleared his holster. Michael, years of close quarters training taking over, closed the distance, disarmed him with a brutal twist of the wrist, and drove his elbow into the man's temple. He dropped. Vivian was already at the van's side door. "Lily, it's Daddy's friend." The door unlocked from inside. Lily peered out, saw Michael, and scrambled into his arms. They transferred to the sedan, a faster car. Michael peeled out of the garage. As they hit the street, his phone buzzed. The noon deadline. He pulled over and used Lily's birthday to access the server. He saw the progress bar, packet delivery complete. At that exact moment, across the city in the Apex Tower lobby, the OmniCorp tactical team found the main server access doors unlocked. They rushed in, only to be met by the flashing lights of dozens of police cars that weren't on Vance's payroll. The state attorney general had acted on the evidence, sending in state troopers. A very public, very messy arrest began. Robert Vance was taken from his corporate office an hour later. The evidence packet was a tsunami: financial crimes, conspiracy, murder for hire based on the traffic cam analysis, cyberterrorism. It was over. The fallout took months. Detective Miller and the corrupted officers were arrested. OmniCorp was dismantled by regulators. Vivian Thorne, hailed as a whistleblower hero, worked with authorities to safely decommission the Sentinel protocol. The Apex Tower systems were rebuilt with transparency in mind. Michael Shaw was granted full immunity for his role. The video of his wife's death was entered into evidence, and Vance was charged with her murder. It didn't bring her back, but it brought a silence to Michael's heart that wasn't filled with unanswered questions. 1 year later, Michael stood before a class in a community center. Not paramedics, but ordinary people, teachers, store clerks, parents. The sign read, "Urban Emergency Readiness." He taught basic trauma care, situational awareness, how to stay calm when the world falls apart. Lily sat in the front row, now 8, her eyes bright with pride. After class, Vivian Thorne arrived, not in a cocktail dress but in jeans. She stepped down as CEO, founding a nonprofit focused on ethical technology. "Heard you're the best teacher in the city," she said. "I had a good example," he replied. They talked easily now, the weight of shared survival a permanent bond. She handed him a small box. "I was cleaning out the safe house. Found this." Inside was his old security guard badge, polished. "A reminder," she said, "that heroes don't always wear the uniforms we expect." He pinned it to the community center's bulletin board, next to a flyer for his class. That night, driving home with Lily asleep in the passenger seat, he passed the illuminated spire of the Apex Tower. It was just a building again, and he was just a father, a teacher. The man who had carried a CEO to safety, and in doing so, found his way back to his own life. The whisper in the stairwell had been a spark in the darkness, and from it, they had both forged a new kind of light. So what is the true cost of a secret? In the end, this wasn't just a story about a blackout or a corporate war or even a whispered confession. It was a story about proximity. How close we all are to the hidden gears that turn our world, and to the people who quietly stand guard over them. A single dad just trying to make rent. A genius who built a cage of light and code to protect herself. Their lives were worlds apart, separated by 70 floors of steel and ambition, until an emergency forced them onto the same step, the same level. We live in systems, cities, networks, corporations, that feel too vast to comprehend, too powerful to challenge. We assume someone else is in control, but this story reveals a different truth, that these systems are made of people, and people are the critical point of failure or of salvation. Michael Shaw wasn't a chosen hero. He was a man who remembered his training, who chose to listen when a powerful woman revealed her vulnerability. Vivian Thorne wasn't an untouchable titan. She was a creator who realized her greatest invention had to be used to protect, not just to control. Their alliance, forged in a dark stairwell, became the lever that moved an empire. It leaves us with a pressing, modern question. As technology grows more autonomous, as the lines between security and surveillance blur, who do we trust to hold the keys? The official channels, which can be corrupted, the private armies of the powerful, or the everyday people, the paramedics, the guards, the teachers, who haven't forgotten that duty is a personal contract, not a corporate policy. The most resilient system may not be the smartest one, but the one that leaves room for human courage, for the decision to carry someone to safety even when the rules